Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We'll be diving into a fascinating topic: government intervention and its impact on real estate markets. Throughout this presentation, we'll explore various policies that governments implement, how these influence market dynamics, look at real world case studies, and conclude with some strategic recommendations. I'm excited to take you through these insights and discuss how these factors shape the real estate landscape. Let's get started. When we talk about the government's role in real estate markets, it's important to understand just how influential government policies and regulations can be. They directly impact the supply and demand of real estate, which in turn affects prices and investment choices. Governments use various tools to manage these factors, such as zoning laws, tax incentives, and housing subsidies. These tools help determine not only how much real estate is available, but also who can access it and at what cost. The overarching goal of these interventions is to achieve public objectives like improving housing affordability, guiding urban development, ensuring safety standards, and fostering economic growth. However, it's also key to recognize that government involvement can create complex ripple effects throughout the market, sometimes producing unintended consequences. In summary, the government's policies play a vital role in shaping the real estate landscape, influencing availability, affordability, and aligning the market with broader social and economic goals. When we talk about government controls in real estate, several key areas come into play. First, zoning laws are essential because they determine how land can be used and the density of development, which helps manage the growth of urban areas effectively. Alongside this, property taxes play a big role, impacting the cost of holding real estate and influencing how attractive an investment might be. Next, rent control is designed to regulate how much landlords can increase rental prices, providing protection for tenants. Building codes are equally important as they set the safety and quality standards for any construction, ensuring buildings are safe and meet certain criteria. Lastly, environmental regulations are critical for protecting ecosystems by controlling how land is developed. Governments also use subsidies to provide financial support, often aimed at encouraging affordable housing or specific types of development. And then there's eminent domain, which gives authorities the power to acquire private property for public use. But importantly, they must provide fair compensation to the owners. All these controls work together to balance growth, safety, and community needs in real estate. When governments impose controls, it can significantly impact both supply and demand in the housing market. First, zoning restrictions and building regulations limit the amount of housing that can be developed, effectively restricting supply. At the same time, increasing development costs make it more expensive to build new properties, which often leads to fewer new constructions. Rent controls are another factor. By capping rent levels, they can discourage investors from putting money into rental properties, reducing available rentals. Additionally, taxes and subsidies are powerful tools that influence the behavior of buyers and investors, sometimes encouraging or deterring activity in the market. Altogether, these controls can create supply shortages and change demand patterns, which may cause price fluctuations and lead to imbalances in the housing market. When we talk about the economic effects of real estate controls, one of the first things to understand is how they influence investor decisions. Because these controls change the expected returns and the risk involved, investors might be less willing to put their money into certain projects. This leads directly to some of the affordability challenges we see, especially when controls limit the supply of housing, driving prices up instead of down. Another important point is the market distortions that can arise. For example, controls can reduce the natural turnover of housing, meaning fewer people can move and adjust their living situations. In extreme cases, it might even encourage black markets where transactions happen outside of the legal framework. Then there's the impact on construction and innovation. When regulations make development riskier or less profitable, builders and developers may hold back on new projects or shy away from creative housing solutions that could benefit the market. Finally, it all comes down to finding the right balance between regulation and market freedom. Too much control can backfire and create these negative effects, but too little might lead to other issues like exploitation or lack of oversight. Striking that balance is essential for a healthy and affordable real estate market. Let's look at the case of New York City's rent control policies to understand their effects. These long-term rent stabilization measures were designed primarily to protect tenants from sharp rent increases, providing them with some security in their housing costs. However, while well-intentioned, these policies have also limited the overall rental supply. By capping potential income, landlords often have less motivation to offer new rental units or even properly maintain existing properties. This has a ripple effect, leading to reduced housing mobility because tenants are less likely to move within a market where affordable options are limited. Additionally, the decreased investment in rental housing can hinder the quality and availability of units over time. Ultimately, these policies have contributed to affordability challenges by distorting the housing market, particularly in neighborhoods where rent stabilization is most prevalent. So, while rent control offers tenant protections, it also brings unintended consequences that impact the broader housing ecosystem. San Francisco's zoning laws are known for being quite strict, especially when it comes to allowing high-density housing developments. Because of these limitations, the city faces significant housing shortages, as new construction is heavily constrained. This shortage drives up housing prices and contributes to a higher overall cost of living. As a result, many workforce and low-income residents struggle to find affordable places to live. This example clearly shows how land use regulations, while important to planning, can sometimes restrict the housing supply and put extra pressure on markets in areas where demand is very high. Here, we see examples from different cities that have taken unique approaches to managing their real estate markets. Vancouver, for instance, increased property taxes specifically targeting foreign speculative buyers. This was aimed at cooling down market speculation and making housing more accessible to residents. In Singapore, the government controls land sales and provides subsidies, which together help ensure that a large portion of the population has access to affordable housing. This coordinated approach is quite effective in maintaining housing affordability. Berlin tried a different tactic with its rent cap experiment, designed to limit rent increases and make housing more affordable. However, this policy faced legal challenges and its impact on market affordability and supply was mixed, showing how complex these interventions can be. Overall, these examples highlight the variety of strategies governments use and the different outcomes they can achieve in real estate markets. It underscores that there is no one-size-fits-all solution, and each approach has its own challenges and benefits. When it comes to real estate policy, one of the biggest challenges is finding the right balance between market efficiency and social goals. We need regulations that keep the market functioning well, but also address broader societal needs like affordability and equity. At the same time, it's crucial that these rules don't overly restrict the supply of housing or scare off investment, as that could worsen shortages. Another key point is enhancing housing affordability thoughtfully. Policies should make homes more accessible without creating economic distortions that could backfire. Supporting sustainable growth plays into this as well. Using tools like flexible zoning and targeted subsidies can help communities grow in a way that's both economic and environmentally sound. Finally, it's important to recognize that real estate markets are dynamic. Policies should be regularly evaluated for their long-term effects, and governments need to remain flexible, adapting strategies as circumstances evolve to ensure the best outcomes for everyone.